Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you find yourself today. It's another beautiful day. And we come your way one more time with Leadership Academy. It's going to be an exciting one as always. Your views, your contributions, your opinions are all welcome. Basically, as usual, on this platform, we don't argue, we discuss issues. In other words, you tell us your opinion, we share our opinion, and we go back and forth with points, data, facts, truth, to be able to make it clearer for all of us to learn from each other. So we don't argue on this platform. We don't have an entrenched position trying to shove it down somebody's throat. So if you have a dissenting opinion, you can table that respectfully, and we will go back and forth. Somebody will say we will judge all and make meaning of that. Once again, I want to welcome you to Leadership Academy. My name is Nana Osei Bonsu Jr. Of AfriWIC International Organization and CERTO Leadership International. For those of you who don't know, AfriWIC is a youth leadership organization, and the AfriWIC is an acronym meaning an African with a changed mentality, and its sister organization is CERTO. CERTO means service to humanity. So I know most times, last week somebody texted me to ask what is AfriWIC, because I keep talking about AfriWIC. So there you have it. AfriWIC is a non-profit youth leadership organization, and we are trying to raise the youth to identify their leadership gifts, develop them, and serve them to their generation. And so is CERTO Leadership International. That's the sister organization of AfriWIC International Organization. So there you have it. Alrighty, without much ado, we're going to zoom straight into our discussion today. And as we always do, our mantra: creativity and inventions are not by the color of one's skin, but by an educated mind. And I want to repeat, creativity and inventions are not by the color of one's skin, but by an educated mind. So irrespective of the color of your skin, if you educate your mind, you should be able to create and invent. On this platform, we don't entertain insults, because insults don't solve no problem. They incite passions, they inflame egos. That's all it does, and it gets nothing done. So we don't entertain that on this platform. But then we entertain differences in opinions. If you have whatever opinion, if you don't agree with us on any way, you can table that. We very much love that. Yes, we love that people will have differences in opinions, table them, and then we judge all and make sense out of it all. I want to hand over to my co-pilot, who is with me every Saturday. So as I always say, if I crash, I don't crash by myself. We crash together. So Prof is here. Prof, introduce yourself whilst I check on Facebook, and then we will set the ball rolling for today's discussion.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. This is Kwejo Ewua Frimpong of CERTO and AfriWIC, and you've already been explained to by my executive director, Nana Osei Bonsu Jr. And we're talking about corruption as one of the major reasons why the African continent refuses to move forward. And one of the things we like to say also is that bad governance, corrupt practices, all the negativities that you can think of is not an African problem or an African norm. It's a human issue, like we want to talk about. If you see us mentioning Africa a lot, it is because Africa and Africans are our issue, but we are also Africans. They could do whatever anyway, and it might not even bother me. But when something goes wrong with our own people, they call it cleaning the audience tables. You really can't talk about other people's issues if you can't talk about your own. So we want to let people understand that we don't talk about African issues simply because those are the issues. We talk about them because those are the issues that negatively affects people of African descent, wherever that you may be. So before we dive into the main topic, I want anybody who come in and listen to us to understand that corruption is a human problem. And as long as human beings exist on this planet, there is going to be corruption everywhere. Matter of fact, yesterday, Nana, you remember I sent you an article about how corruption has engulfed the La Liga in terms of Barcelona being charged with some corrupt practices, And I always point to this. As individuals, we are not very different. The races, I should put that in because I don't believe in races. Race is a human concept. It's not even a biological concept. Racism is real. That one I will agree with you. But the idea that there are different races, that is a human concept. We formed it. It has no biological basis. We can have that discussion on another level on another day. But what I'm trying to say is that as individuals, we are not really different, but as collectives or societies, we are very different in the way we approach issues. Berlusconi went to jail for corruption. I'm yet to hear of any African leader, although whenever we are in opposition, we talk about how corrupt somebody is, but none has gone to jail. I can continue to give examples. So what we are different in is the way our societies put in systems to check some of the excesses of human character. That is where the difference comes from. Okay, so when we're talking about corruption in Africa and how insidious and dangerous it is because, for the most part, I would not say completely, but for the most part, people who engage in corrupt practices go scot-free. There are no consequences. And one of the fundamental principles Africa and Setup believes in is that action and reaction are equal and opposite. It is a law of motion. It's a scientific rule, like gravity. You cannot escape that. But in Africa, people do escape. There are no consequences for certain corrupt practices. And because of that, people will never change. And that's the paradigm that we come from. Unless we put in systematic systems that will look at individuals and organizations with that bias, we will still be talking about these topics 100 years from now until we do that. Put in systems that will be blind to individuals, so that when you fall victim, it is not because somebody wants to come at you, but because of what you did. And that's what is happening in La Liga today for something that somebody did 20, 15, whatever years ago. That's what we are missing. And that's why we'll continue to bombard the African continent with issues like this, where we need to change so that we can move forward. Thank you, Nana, and thank you to
Thank you so
our
much,
listeners.
Prof. So just to add a little bit to what you just said, we can eradicate corruption from the face of the earth. We cannot 100% eradicate corruption from Africa. But what Prof is saying is, let's put systems in place to reduce the corrupt practices, and also to reward and punish people who decide to do the wrong thing and people who decide to do the right thing. That's all we're saying, because as human as we are, some people would not understand why they should not be corrupt. But if you have a system in place to check it, you'd always be able to reduce the level of corruption. If it becomes like a fashion, everybody jumps into it. And that's what's going on in Africa now. It's become like a fashion. And the dangerous part of it is that it is eaten into every fabric of our society. You go to the schools, even the churches, the unfortunate part, our homes, every aspect of our society is gradually being eaten up by this corruption. And I just want to read this really quick. I saw it today by Kwabena Jima Brimpong, Department of Economics, University of South Florida. This is an abstract. He wrote a paper he did, and I'm just going to read a little bit. He said this paper used panel data from African countries and a dynamic panel estimator to investigate the effects of corruption on economic growth and income distribution. I find that corruption decreases economic growth directly and indirectly through decreased investment in physical capital. A unit increase in corruption reduces the growth rates of GDP and per capita income by between 0.75 and 0.9% points, and between 0.39 and 0.41% points per year, respectively. The results also indicate that increased corruption is positively correlated with income inequality. The combined effects of decreased income growth and increased inequality suggest that corruption hurts the poor more than the rich in the African countries. And today we're going to be talking about the effects of corruption on unemployment and the rise in poverty. Remember, when we started this discussion, I spoke about poverty. And I said that it is not lack of resources. It's a mental issue. It's lack of understanding of our resources and how we can use it to develop ourselves and to serve our communities and our generation. And I gave an example of the fact that if billions of dollars are being siphoned from the coffers of Africa, and we claim the continent is poor, or it's a poverty-stricken continent, and yet how can you steal from a poor person? Just ask yourself, if somebody has nothing, what are you going to steal from that person? So it tells you that it's lack of understanding of our resources and how to develop those resources to be able to serve our communities And that is what is happening, because everybody thinks, especially going into politics, is the fastest way of making money. Why? Because that is the only way, as Prof said, you can get corrupt and nobody can dare touch you because you have power. As a matter of fact, some corrupt people in Africa gets punished. The little ones. Yeah, the little ones. And that is when the political powers that be wants to show they're fighting against corruption. They go after the little fish. And yet, they keep a blind eye on the ones right at their corridor. You know, so it is the perception it creates amongst the people. That is what makes us poor. That is what leads us into poverty, because it creates a perception that the only way we can develop as a people, the only way we can improve our lives is to be corrupt. My brother-in-law was mad about a statement made by somebody in Ghana saying, somebody's money is in somebody's pocket. So they had to find every ways and means to get that money from your pocket by hook or crook. And we were talking about it, discussing it. And I said, yes, it's a good concept. But then the approach to how you get that money is what makes the difference. Because everybody's money, somebody's money is in somebody's pocket. You either render service to get that money, or you do something to get that money. But in the context of most of the Africans or the Ghanaian, it's because they're not thinking of rendering a service to get that money. I don't know if I'm making sense. They're thinking of doing something dubious to take that money from you without rendering service. You see, so whichever way you slice it, yes, somebody's money is in, because you go to work for a company, your money is in their pocket, but you're rendering service for you to get that money. And it has to be quality service. It has to be good service for you to get that money. But in the context of how the person presented it, or how the person said it, was the fact that they're not ready to render service, but they are ready to dupe you to get that money. And tell me that is not a poor mind. That is a poor mind. In other words, they see no other way of developing themselves to make that money out of service, or to make that money legitimately. The only way they think of making that money is duping somebody or making that money illegitimately. That comes out of a poor mind. A rich mind would think of the fact that, yes, my money is in somebody's pocket, but then what gift do I have to serve this person to be able to get paid for my service, to get my money out of this person's pocket? That is a rich mind. So when we're talking about corruption, we're talking about the fact that it creates some of these poor mental state, let me put it that way, of people. And that is how they walk about, trying to look for an opportunity to dupe, trying to look for an opportunity to steal, let me use that word with no apologies, to steal from people. Be it using pen, some of the people are going to tell you they are white collar thieves who are going to use their pens to steal. You know, so these are the kind of people we are creating in our society with the perception of corruption, or with corruption being rooted in our community, we create these kinds of poor minds in our society. So people get out of school, the first thing they look at is politics. You find most of the people, they get out of school and the first thing is, hey, I got to join this political party so I can make some money. Whereas if you don't have a poverty-stricken mind, when you get out of school, you ask yourself, what are the tools I was able to acquire? And how can I use these tools to serve my generation? How can I use these tools to serve my community? And that is the only way we can develop or we can improve ourselves as a community. So until we are able to nip corruption in the bud, we are going to create this attitude and this perception in the minds of people, where people think that their money is in somebody's pocket and they have to get it by hook or crook, by any means necessary. And that is why sometimes you even go to the market to buy something and the price is jacked up about 1,000%. You know, the attitude, the poverty-stricken mind, it is jacked up about 1,000%. And sometimes they don't understand why they can sit the whole day and people are not buying. Whereas if you are able to bring the price to where it's supposed to be, you can sell X amount of your stuff. But no, the poverty-stricken mind is so greedy, he or she is looking for an opportunity to make money or to make wealth illegitimately. And that is what corruption is doing to our people. And when we do that, guess what? It affects employment. I was listening to some businessmen in Ghana, and they were talking about the fact that when they employ Ghanaians, they steal from them. They steal from them because of the same poverty-stricken mind. They are looking for an opportunity to make money quick. Why? Because we are hailing those politicians and our political managers who were stealing from the state coffers. We're hailing them. So everybody wants to be hailed in that community. So we don't create a people with certain kind of principles to go to work and decide that I am here to offer my service and offer my service in a very genuine way. And so one of the businessmen was saying that he's closing down his business and he's not going to operate in Ghana. The other person said he had to go all the way to South Africa to bring a manager from South Africa to oversee his business because he cannot find a worthy person in Ghana, an honest person in Ghana, to oversee the business for him. Because people are cooking the books. They call it cooking the books, cutting it here and pasting it there. Because of corruption, we are breeding a poverty-stricken mind of people, which is not going to help our community. It's not going to help our society. It's not going to help our generation. It's not going to help our continent. That is why we are talking about trying to nip corruption in the back by beginning to change our perception, our mentality, by beginning to adapt principles of life and leadership. And that is the only way we can begin to make a meaningful contribution to our community. All right, Prof, over to you. Let me check on
Yeah.
Facebook.
My biggest issue with corruption, as far as societal, I'm not talking about individual corruption, even though that is the basis upon which societal corruption actually runs, is the fact that it creates a cycle, a vicious cycle from which, if we don't really take a stand, we will never escape from. Let me give you typical. Okay. If there is a contract for a road construction, and the bidding process is corrupt to the point whereby the contract is awarded not to the best company, which should be done based on meritocracy as a basis for running a country, then the one who gets the contract is sort of indebted to whoever gave him the contract. So let's say I'm supposed to pay $100 for this contract. It means that $100 must come from me, and I'm a businessman. So I'm going to take the money for the contract and reimburse whoever gave me the contract $100. You see, which has taken something out of my pocket, and because of that, I will need to reduce the amount of money and I am going to put into this contract, which means I'm going to do a minor, mediocre execution of my job. Okay, extend this into millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and you see where I am coming from. So a road that should take us 20 years to reconstruct, within 5 years, we have to reconstruct that road. It means more money needs to come from the coffers of the country to reconstruct a road that do not need to be reconstructed if the first contract had been executed perfect. That money could have been used for something else. Okay. Back in the day growing up, I had to go visit my cousin in a completely new place that I had never been to. The place was remote, the roads were bad, everything was like there was no electricity and all that. Jump 30 years later, and when I went home, a journey to a cocoa processing area took me to the same village. I was shocked that in 20 years, that village has overtaken my hometown in the way it has developed. So I went back and I did my research. Just by the construction of a good road and electricity being extended to that village is booming today. Imagine the monies in individual pockets that were supposed to produce or construct factories in our villages and in our towns. Imagine the amount of people who were going to be employed if there had been no corrupt practices and these manufacturing hubs had been created. Imagine the people who will be paying taxes to the government to reimburse the government for these contracts so that the government can create more jobs elsewhere. Imagine the web effect of just one company being constructed with the resources in the local community. Just imagine. So when we talk about corruption as being such a bad factor in our retrogressive societies, this is where we are coming from. It makes everybody poorer, not just in terms of our mindsets, but also in terms of our pockets. Because one person takes a big chunk of money that is supposed to be used for a project, siphoning it for his personal usage, and then the rest of society suffers because of that. But there is a very big difference between elevating the whole society than just elevating yourself. That's where, as individuals, we need to look when we are debating this issue of corruption. Elevating the whole society as against elevating just certain individuals. Because one factor can change the whole scene, the whole society in an instance. Just one factor, and just multiply that across the economic spectrum of each African country, and you see where we are coming from. Now, why do the whole world disrespect the Black race? That's another argument for another day. But I'm telling you today that if we were not poor, we will be able to take care of a lot of crises in Africa, food shortages, diseases, civil wars, and all that. But the money that is supposed to be the oil for churning out all these solutions to our problem, that money is being stagnated, being siphoned out of the system for individual use. And because these monies are not reintroduced into the engine of our economy, the economy is just spattering on like you have a very brand new car and you are putting sand into the engine instead of oil. That's what we are doing. And then we are surprised that our economies can't really function. Look, when you take money that doesn't belong to you, when it's societal money that is supposed to employ somebody, what you are doing is that you are making the society poorer, because the multiple effects of just one factory or just one contract being executed perfectly goes away. So the meager resources that we should have the maximum benefit from has already been reduced just by one individual or a group of individuals who enrich themselves at the expense of the masses. I am not a communist. I am not a socialist. But I'm saying that if money doesn't belong to you, it's supposed to create a factory. You take that money away. 10, 20, 30, 100 people do not get employed. These 100 people, if they were employed, they will pay taxes. They will have the economic capacity to also employ other people by buying goods and services. And that will have a multiple effect on any economy. You took that away. You took the multiple effect away. Whether you are a businessman or you are a politician or whatever it is, once the money doesn't belong to you and it was supposed to be used for something, and you take that away, you have sort of shortchanged your entire society and the economy and yourself. Because when all the people, imagine you are a businessman in that community and everybody has the economic capacity to buy. Won't that boost your business? So even from a very selfish point of view, you should be the one advocating that there should be no corruption, so that more people will have the economic capacity to purchase or to come be able to afford your service. So generally speaking, this is from the perspective from which I hate corruption. It takes away the ability to employ. And then because it takes away the ability to employ, it makes the society poorer by making individuals within the society, especially those at the very bottom of the economic ladder, poorer. Then, as an individual, you have to watch when people go hungry, when people get sick and they cannot be cared for. Look, in 2013, the poorest country in the world was considered the Democratic Republic of Congo in Africa. And that is one of the most resource-rich nations on planet Earth. Why is that? Why? When you look at the corruption index, it tells you a whole story, because the most corrupt countries are also the poorest. Simply because money that is supposed to elevate people out of poverty, that money is being channeled out of the country. And the funny thing is, most of our political managers take the money and go invest it in places that do not need that money. Places that do not need them, because they know themselves that eventually maybe there will be a change of government, or maybe there will be repercussions later. So once they get the money, they take it out of the country. Further stricken the ability of the nation to actually take care of its people. Pregnant women giving birth on the floor, people getting sick there, and there is no medication for them. Young people going to school hungry, having no teachers. They don't even have a desk to sit on. And you consider these the future leaders of our nations. How are they even going to get educated to the point? And like you were saying, when young people see this, that it is those who actually steal that are hailed simply because they have money. We started by debunking this idea that gifts and whatnot are the basis upon which corruption started in Africa. We've already debunked it. But today, our society has this concept of glamorizing wealth without actually looking at where the wealth came from. Now, you are telling me that it does not pay to be honest when dealing with money, because I will be poor. But then those people that, especially when we in opposition, we bash them that they are corrupt, they are this, they are that. And then when we come into power, we do exactly the same thing to amass wealth. And these are the people that are sort of worshipped in our societies. Why are we surprised when the youth want to take the money out of our pockets, or out of the perceived pockets in which these monies are? Because they feel that is the way to go. I know I'm digressing, but the point is this: monies that are supposed to be used for the society or societal interests should go where they are supposed to go. And then when they don't, whoever takes the money for his individual purposes should be punished accordingly. And this should be systematic, year round. It should not be a flash in the pan. It should be something that should be consistently done for like 100 years if we really want to turn around. Because, Nana, believe me, corruption really kills. Okay, the amount of people who die a day due to somebody just taking money that is meant for the community has not been quantified. But it is there. If I go to the hospital and there are no drugs, even when I have money to pay and I die, and the hospital doesn't have drugs because the person supposed to provide the drugs took the money and vanished, you killed me. That's the simplest explanation of what you have done. You are a murderer. If I go to school and there are no textbooks, or there are no teachers because the teachers have not been paid, but the money has been allocated for them, who caused it? If I'm driving on a road that was not constructed properly, because 20% of the money that is supposed to be used for the construction went to a politician, and I get into an accident and I die, You are a murderer, and we should be calling you like as such. So until our society puts in place systems that automatically check people from who do these things, we will go round and round and round. I am an advocate for systems that prevent people from even doing the wrong thing, not just for punishing them for doing the right thing. The first step is to prevent them even from doing the wrong thing. And it can be done. It has been done. You always cite Magufuli. It can be done. And until we look at it from that perspective, there are going to be crisis upon crisis upon crisis. There is no reason why Ghana should be so low on the poverty rankings. There's no reason Nigeria should be. There is no reason the Congo should be, Libya, Tunisia, Egypt, Kenya, whatever. There is no reason. We have the resources to actually pull ourselves out of poverty if the resources would be put to the right usage. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. So just to add to what you're saying, it goes to support the fact that you got to have a poor mind to be corrupt, because from the factors we have laid on the table shows that if we stop corruption, wealth will go round. It'll spread. It'll be distributed to every corner of Africa. And so it'll even come back to you. Because as you said, it's going to economically empower the community to patronize your service. So in other words, your business is also going to boom if that money is not taken out of the system. And about a week ago, I was having a discussion with a friend, and he was talking about the fact that the masses make the politicians corrupt. Because sometimes when somebody is elected into the office of a member of parliament, the following morning you have the whole community lined up in front of his or at his door, some getting school fees, some getting money for whatever. And I said, no, it should not be the people making the politicians corrupt. And you just explained my point. If that politician is putting the money into good use, then nobody will be at your door begging for money for school fees, because the schools are there. The books are there. The mom's business is booming because you are putting the money allocated for whatever into its proper use. And so the economy is booming, so nobody is going to be at your door begging for money. So the concept that the people or the masses who elected these politicians are also a contributory factor to the politicians being corrupt does not hold water here. You have the power. That is why you've been given, that is why it is called power. It means you have the tool to make decisions, to make changes. That is what power does. Anytime power exhibits itself, it makes changes. Power does not exhibit itself and remains the same or leave that environment the same. When an earthquake happens, it makes changes. That is power. So if you've been given power, you got to make changes. It means serve the people correctly, serve the people rightly, and nobody will come to your door for money for food or for money for school fees. So, in other words, as you're saying, if we're able to put the monies into good use, the wealth spreads around. And you, as the politician, can have your peace of mind. You're not going to be paying anybody's school fees. Yes, you're paying school fees now because you have the money, you were sitting on somebody's money. So they had to come to you for the school fees. You see, so if you think about some of these things, it is only a sick mind who would do some of these things, who would corrupt, who would steal from the people and create poverty, create unemployment, so they will be rich alone in that community. So in other words, your riches could even multiply in a matter of time if you're able to invest the monies that are supposed to go to X, Y, Z. You invest them there. What is going to happen is there's going to be returns. The wealth within that community is going to increase. And if it increases your wealth as well. So again, it is only a sick mind. And that is why when I talk about poverty, I always want to see it as a mental sickness. You know, because it really does not make sense. And as you said, Magufuli showed us the way. He was a perfect example. He was like, let's clean the system of corruption and we would not go begging for money. And he did it for 5 solid years. Building schools, building railways, building hospitals, putting beds in bedless hospitals, equipping hospitals. By just cleaning up the mess, cleaning up the corruption. So as you said, it can be done. So somebody showed us the way, somebody did it. You know, and unfortunately, he was taken out. So if somebody did it and if it can be done, it tells you that it can be done by people who are sane, people who think right, people who have the right principles, people who are not poor in their minds. And that's what poverty does. Poverty is selfish. Poverty is greedy. You know, when you have rich minds, they want to share, they want to serve, they want to be selfless. And so the effects of corruption, as we are saying, is unemployment. Unemployment. And it's very sad. You know, Congo is still going through some tough times as we're speaking right now.
And they still has most of the sought after resources in this world. And they are
I was talking to somebody who said the amount of uranium in Congo can destroy the whole world.
Alone.
Just
uranium alone, just one, and they
Yep.
don't have just uranium. So Nana, you know, I was trained as a natural resource.
Right.
And the first mantra that you should imbibe is that resources are not, they become. That is the first mantra.
Yep.
We've had that discussion, we can have that discussion again. But going back to what your friend was saying about the people making our politicians corrupt. I'm not supposed to curse on this program, but I nearly did when I heard that. because that is one of the things that I found so amazing when I went to. Now, everything is leadership. The rest is effects.
Mm-hmm.
We will say that again and again.
Right.
And for us, Seto AfriWeek, we believe solidly in the principle of process. Where did we get? When did we get here? And how did we get here? What it is that a proud people go a begging. How did we get here? Now, I will always say this: the people are sheep, and that's why they need a shepherd. Now, if I pay you as a shepherd, please don't come and complain to me about the sheep, because that's your job. Okay, that is your job, to shepherd the sheep. You have no business complaining about the sheep. So whenever people tell me, oh, it's the people, no, it is not. It is leadership. If leadership creates the condition, the people will follow. That's why they are called leaders, because they have leverage. We need to repeatedly put this to our people, that the people will follow any good leader. The people will follow any good leader. Okay. I see you come into power, and within 4 years, you are so rich, it is ridiculous. To the point whereby when you were campaigning, you are giving money to people. You are giving freebies to people. Nothing prevents me from coming to your door for my school fees, because you took the school fees away from me to begin with.
Thank you.
And that's why this concept of somebody's money is in somebody's pocket and we must take it out by all means necessary. That's where it comes from, because you have shown us there is no society in which, if you do not invent and sell a product, you get rich within 10 years. It does not happen. So if I know somebody that I live with, I've worked with, and within 4 years of becoming, say, an MP or a director in a company or whatever, and within that 4 years, that person becomes fabulously rich, of course, I need to question the basis of that one. And that's why people will come with their bowls and their cups to your doorstep, because you've been promising them something and you never deliver. Okay, so I also had this argument with one of my closest friends when I was back home in Kumasi. He was talking about how bad the nurses are. And I was like, no, let's stop it right there. The nurses have supervisors, they have managers, the managers have managers, and it goes right up to the top of the chain. He was like, but, and I said, no. That is where our understanding of the principle of process is so weak. We blame the one at the lowest rank for behaving badly, even though the one on top of him is also behaving badly. Because elsewhere, you put up this behavior, you will be reprimanded consistently, or you'll be fired. And so it is in your personal selfish interest to do right. That's what I keep going back to, this issue of systematic approach to issues of life, not ad hoc. We are all, one of my friends just said, we are always appealing to emotions and morality simply because we don't have systems in place. And we don't even have the morality or whatever for us to appeal to, because the person has made up his mind that as long as he can take money belonging to the people and serving it off, and nothing will happen to him. How are you going to appeal to such a person's morality? There's no morality to appeal to. So please, as Africans, let us understand the principle of process. Things do take time, and great things do take great time. Okay, the gestation period of a mouse is not the same as that of an elephant. So we want to do great things. Please let's understand that these things will take time and consistency. That's where my problems comes to. We do something for a year, we don't see results, we just walk away. And we go back to factory reset, which is each one for himself. But the society cannot be run like that. And we need to get that on point. Yeah, we need to. And I think
Thank you,
our
Prof. Yep, time is up. Thank you so much for the submission. As we just said, that let us change our mindset, because when we steal from the coffers of the nations, when we bankrupt to the nations, it affects employment. People become jobless. It makes the youth become jobless. And as Prof said, they will come to your doors for school fees because you have taken their school fees. And so let us begin to change our mindset. Again, I will plead with parents. You see, education starts from the home. It does not start from the classroom. It starts from the home. So, Prof, were you going to say something? Because I'm going to close the curtain. So if you have something to say, you say. I think you're on mute.
You remember the video you sent me?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Education, or an educator, is somebody who leads people out of ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
A teacher just gives you facts and figures.
Yep.
And once you started on that tangent, I was laughing. You see, we need people to be educated and not schooled. That is something we need to always talk about. And that's why you say invention is not by the color of one's skin, it's by an educated mind. And as long as we don't understand that, we'll keep going in circles. That's what I wanted to say.
Alrighty. So Prof just nailed it right on the head. So let us educate our kids. Let us imbibe principles into our kids. Let us teach them principles. And when they grow, they will not depart from it. Thank you for being a part of Leadership Academy. We're going to be here next week, same time, continue the discussion of corruption and its effects on the African continent. So we encourage you to share, invite a friend, to invite another friend, to invite a friend, to be a part of Leadership Academy next week, same time, same place. My name is Nana Osei Bonsu Jr. of AfriWeek International Organization and Certo Leadership International. And my co-host is Prof. This man is educated. So I don't care. I'm not looking for the paper to tell me what title should be given to him. You're muted, Prof.
The paper will come, don't worry.
I don't even care about that paper because that paper means Jack. It doesn't mean Jack. So yes, that's Prof. Kojo Ewa Frimpong, also of Certo International, Certo Leadership International and AfriWeek International Organization. Mm-hmm. We want to thank you very much for investing your time into Leadership Academy, and we hope you are going to be with us next week, same time, same place. You have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.